Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video, doing the autumn 2019 forecast for today's first video. So we're going to go over the data and go over things that we have discussed through the autumn updates. So 9 autumn analogues updates this season, as well as 3 seasonal model roundup. So we're going to go through everything very shortly, and then we will give you the forecast based on both the analogues and also on the long-range seasonal models. Now, more than any other forecast that we've done at Gaswell, this is a truly collaborative effort. The efforts of our good friend Terry Scholey has been invaluable for this, and I'll talk you through that in a moment. I'm going to show you some reanalysis for Terry's forecast later on in the video, and I'll talk about Terry's forecast as well. So, before I get on with that, though, just to say that it's going to be quite a long video, so if you can't watch it all in one go, then don't worry, you will be able to come back and watch the autumn forecast on the autumn forecast page. So, along with the autumn updates page, you see autumn forecast page, you'll be able to watch it on demand on the autumn forecast page with a written summary from around 5-6 o'clock. I'll try and get it done a little bit earlier because, of course, we've got to get the first winter update together later on this evening, so I'm going to have a busy old evening of it this Saturday evening, so I'll try to get that written summary up for you a little bit earlier than normal later on today. Also, coming up at Gas Service today, you're going to have a weekend forecast, as always, your weekend look ahead, and we will as well have a week to 10-day video update too. Big thank you to our analogues guru James Ackrill, big thank you to Terry Scholey, more about that in a moment, and big thank you to our good friend Richard Trott as well for all of the efforts through this season of autumn updates. I'll give a shout out at the end of the video, of course. Right, so we've been so busy over the past few weeks with so many updates, and James has also had a very, very busy time with it as well, our analogues guru. So actually, for this autumn forecast, it's Terry Scholey who has got together all of our leading analogues years for us. Terry has been compiling the lists as we've been going along, the things that we've been looking at, and it is Terry who has come up with our leading analogues years for this autumn forecast. So I've got to say a huge, huge thank you to Terry for doing that. Terry's advice, efforts, and general guidance has been invaluable, not only for this particular season of updates, but more generally through our long-range stuff. As I always say, Terry's like the guiding hand on the arm, letting us know that we're going in the right direction. But for this season, with us being so busy and struggling for time, Terry has been absolutely invaluable. So thank you so much, Terry, for your efforts helping us out with this autumn forecast. Right, so I'm going to go to the autumn forecast page at Gasworthy's. I just want to talk through things that I've been looking at through this season. So let's scroll down through the updates. Start off with sneak peek, of course, don't need to worry about that. So in update number 1, we picked up where we left off with the summer forecast, and we looked at our leading analogue years for the summer forecast, 1914, 1989, 1990 and 1995, and see what the autumns were like followed that. Also, more importantly, through the first update, we had a look at the QBO quasi-biennial oscillation. We're going to have a westerly QBO for this autumn. Update number 2 focused on May CET data. Update number 3, this one just here, focused on spring to autumn data, and in particular we were looking at England and Wales precipitation during the spring as well. Update number 4 just here was looking at solar activity, so we're looking at solar minimum autumns. That's the first season model round. Of course, that does play a part within the autumn forecast, and I'm going to get to later in the video. This one is autumn, the 5th autumn 2019 analogues update. So this one was looking at the top 20 wettest Junes on record and the autumns that followed them. This was our 6th analogues update. This was looking at the June central England temperature. and then we went up to the second or 2019 seasonal weather roundup. Then we got to the business end of the Analogues update. So update number 7 was an ENSO special. That one was looking at waters that were either going to ENSO neutral from a weak El Nino, or were going from El Nino to La Nina, because we were unsure at that point whether it's likely to be an ENSO neutral or a La Nina autumn. I think it's probably going to be more towards ENSO neutral, but we shall see about that. The 8th autumn Analogues update looked at the July Central England temperature. And then the 9th and final autumn 2019 Analogues update looked at July England and Wales precipitation. So that's everything that we'll be looking at through this season. Last update just here, of course, third and final season one roundup. So that's everything that we've been looking at through this season of updates for the autumn 2019. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to have any August data this year. Again, just been so busy. But actually, Terry's forecast does include the August that have over 100 millimetres of rain. So there's a little bit of that in Terry's forecast, but I'm going to come on to later in the video. But anyway, bringing all of that together, all things that we've been looking at, these are our leading analogue years. So, for example, the first leading analogue year here scoring 3 or more is 1866, or scoring 3, I suppose I should say. So this one is a leading year because it has the ENSO, the El Nino to ENSO neutral situation. It also is an autumn just prior to or around solar minimum, and it has a July England and Wales precipitation of 62 to 80. Let's get rid of that. It has July England and Wales precipitation of 62 to 82 millimetres. So that has 3 matches for our analogues. Another year that has 3 matches is 1901, just here, so that's a pretty important year for our analogues. That has a spring CP of around 123 millimetres. It's an autumn just prior to or around solar minimum, and it has a July England and Wales precipitation of 62 to 82 millimetres. So that's another pretty important player. However, the leading analogue years are actually matching up 4 of our sort of methodology, if you like. So this is a leading year. This is one of the most important of the years. This is 1958, matching up 4 of the individual things that we've been looking at through the analogues update. So it's 1958 is a match for May central temperature of around 10.9 to 11.3. It's a match for having a spring CP of around 123 millimetres. It is also a match for having a top 20 wettest June since 1850, and it also matches with the June central England temperature as well. Another important match is 1959. That one is a declining westerly QBO through the autumn. It has an ENSO El Nino to La Nina match. It has a July CET between 17.2 and 17.9, and it has a match for July England and Wales precipitation as well at 62 to 82 millimetres. 1966, 1969, 1974, those years have 3 matches, and then our next year having 4 matches is 1975. This one matches up for May England and Wales precipitation. It matches up for autumns just prior to or around solar minimum. It matches up with July central temperature and also with July England and Wales precipitation. 1978, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, is another match. This one has a declining westerly QBO. It matches with the El Nino to ENSO neutral situation. It matches for May England and Wales precipitation of 52 millimetres, and it also matches for spring England and Wales precipitation of around 186 millimetres. So 1978 comes out as quite a important player in terms perhaps more of the spring type stuff rather than the summer central temperatures and precipitation, although it does match importantly for the declining QBO, westerly QBO signal, and also for being a weak El Nino to ENSO neutral autumn. 1980 also has 4 matches. I thought that one had been quite an important player through these updates. Declining westerly QBO, May CT, top 20 wettest June since 1850, and July England and Wales precipitation. 1982, not quite such a good match. 1985 is the next one, matching up 4 years. This one has declining westerly QBO, May CT, 20 wettest Junes, and top 20 wettest Junes, and July England and Wales precipitation. 1987, 1981 have 3 matches, and then the next important year is 1995. This one just here, it has a declining westerly QBO through the autumn. It has an El Nino to La Nina situation going on. It matches for England and Wales precipitation, and it matches for the June CT. 1997 is also important, declining westerly QBO, top 20 wettest June. It matches for June CT2, and autumn just prior to or around solar minimum. The last of the very important years are 2001. Again, intuitively, I think 2001, I thought 2001 was showing up a lot, and indeed it has been. So again, May, England and Wales precipitation, June CT, July CT, and July England and Wales precipitation. That one really matches up in terms of the summer. 2003, not quite such a good match, and then 2004, also declining westerly QBO, May England and Wales precipitation, spring England and Wales precipitation, and July England and Wales precipitation. And then the final top year matching up 4 of our elements that I've been looking at is 2005. So this one again, ENSO matches up for ENSO, Nino to neutral, matches up May England and Wales precipitation. It matches up spring CP of around 123 millimeters, and it also matches up July England and Wales precipitation too. So those are our leading years, and it is our good friend Terry Scholey who has sorted all of that out for us. So thank you so much, Terry, for doing that. This is how the reanalysis looks then, bringing all of those years together. So again, a reminder, we've got 1958, 1959, 1975, 1978, 1980, 1985, 1995, 1997, 2001, 2004, and 2005, all of our leading analog years. And it's interesting that we don't have any but matching up 5 or more or 6 or more. Very often we do find a couple of years that match up sort of 5 of our methodologies. Occasionally we can go up to 6. I think before now we've actually gone up to 7. But this time the matches are all the highest matches are all matching up 4 of our methodology. So anyway, this is how all of these Septembers combined are looking. Anticyclonic signal for September. It has an area on average, these Septembers that are scoring best for our analogues have above average heights sort of over the UK, and much of Western Europe has below average heights up to the north and also to the northeast as well, and that sort of sends the jet stream northwards too. So anticyclonic signal in September, not necessarily all that warm with the position of the high pressure. Let's change the colour. With position of high pressure sort of to our south, you could envisage we would set up a northwest southeast alignment to the jet stream. So not guaranteed to be a very warm September, but certainly quite a dry September would be anticipated. And I would have thought an anticyclonic signal in September is likely to be, at the very least, a little bit warmer than average. It might not be a notably warm month, because for that you would need the ridge to be centred to the east of us and to be drawing up sort of southerly winds, which we're not really doing there. We're sort of bringing in more of a west-northwesterly. So actually, I reckon that would probably be a little bit milder than average, but it would be quite a dry signal for September. October, look at this, an anticyclonic signal again with these years that are leading our analogues. October tends to have the high pressure again centred virtually over the top of the country. with low pressure out in the Atlantic and also to the northeast of us. So the jet stream would be doing something a little bit like that. It would leave us under a ridge of high pressure. Again, you'd expect a very dry month with that, a strong, dry anticyclonic signal. And unlike in September, where the wind is sort of west-northwesterly, in this situation, the wind is going to be probably east or southeasterly. So it could be quite a warm month, actually, with that. Dare I say, a little bit of an Indian summer possible there in October. And look at this, it goes on into November as well. November also, with our leading analogue years, has a very, very strongly anticyclonic signal with high pressure slap bang over the top of the country, and low pressure in the Atlantic, and also low pressure under there. Now, by this point, of course, because autumn is a transitional season, so high pressure in September is going to be relatively warm, but by November that could actually be quite a chilly signal. There could be some pretty cool weather in with that. So possibly November holds the best chance of being a colder month, but it would be, if that's right, would be sort of an anticyclonic type cold with frost and fog perhaps becoming more common. Not particularly cold from a high latitude blocking type source. So we're not taking that high pressure up to Greenland or up to Scandinavia or up to the Arctic and pulling in cold north or easterly winds. It's not that kind of wintry cold. But it could be a bit chilly anyway, with an increasing risk of frost and fog. But the main thing I think that's coming out from our leading analogues is very, very dry. This autumn could be a very, very dry autumn indeed, very benign conditions. And in terms of the autumns overall, well, obviously it's going to be an anticyclonic signal because all three of those months were displaying very anticyclonic tendencies. So yes, for the autumn we have the high pressure almost centred right over top of the country, and therefore you would expect a very dry autumn. You expect a very dry season, very benign, distinct lack of storminess, and just very, very quiet, consistently quiet weather. Of course, there will be some weather systems breaking through. These are anomaly charts, so there would, of course, be wet and windy weather coming through at times. It wouldn't be totally dry from beginning to end every single day through the autumn, but on average, this would be a dry autumn, of course, with high pressure dominating. It would be a relatively mild autumn as well, and there will be a distinct lack of storminess going on. Now, just to have a quick look at Terry's forecast, because Terry's actually based a lot of his forecasts on our analogues, but also added his own little tweaks in there as well. So this was Terry Scholey's forecast, but was released a little while ago. Actually we're on the autumn updates page there, aren't we? So what are we going to do to get to Terry's forecast? Sorry about this, I thought I put the page load up, but I hadn't. So let's go up here to long range. Sorry about this, it's been a very long day today. So we're looking for Terry Scholey. Terry should be down there. Yes, there he is. So we'll click Terry's button, and we go through to Terry's page, Terry Scholey 30-day forecast, and to Terry's autumn 2019 forecast. So this was it. This is what Terry's saying. Somewhat unsettled, but warm, even very warm at times until second week of October. Colder spells there after, giving night frost and patchy fog, especially in November, but also further milder, wet and windy weather, perhaps stormy intervals. In more detail, so he says that September generally warmer than average until towards mid-month, with some very warm summery intervals possible, especially in the east and south. Unsettled at times though, with occasional rain and showers in the north and west. A mixed, perhaps humid, showery spell towards or around the middle part of September, with some locally heavy showers, perhaps giving thunder over England and Wales, and a good deal of dry and settled weather, so back to high pressure again in the second half of September. With just some slightly cooler nights though, and warm afternoons. So I'm going to leave a link to Terry's forecast in the description at YouTube, by the way, for anyone who hasn't read it. October, mostly mild first half, but increasingly unsettled and windy at times, especially in the north and northwest. And then as we go into the second half of the month, going to a much colder spell, Terry thinks. So after further showers, a much colder, but mainly dry spell could develop during the third week. Night frost and patchy fog seem likely before it probably turns milder, breezy and unsettled again towards month's end. And then in November, first half probably wet and windy at times, perhaps even stormy. Probably quieter in the second half of November, turning cold with some very cold nights that will give sharp frost and patchy fog. If fog occurs, it'll tend to linger, some locally dense and freezing. Atlantic westerlies bring milder, wetter, windy weather before the end of the month. So a cooling trend from mid-October, as one would expect. Warmest month certainly September, with the wettest probably in November. And this is how the reanalysis looks for Terry's forecast. So these are Terry's leading analogue years. We only have one from Gaz Weathervid's leading years, which is 1997. Terry's also got 1866, 1879, 1966 and 1991. You see, it's still a relatively warm signal for September with Terry's reanalysis, but in this case, the high pressure is centred sort of across central southern parts of Europe, and low pressure tends to be a little bit closer to us. So it is a warm signal. It's bringing up the wind from a south-southwesterly source, but it could be just a little bit more unsettled, but certainly a very warm September would be likely there. October, very similar to the Gauss-Weathervid's package with October analogues package, so anticyclonic signal a little bit further north perhaps compared to where we have it with our leading analogue years, but nevertheless very similar signals really. Just allows perhaps for the prospect of something a little bit colder later in the month. And then November, this one holds the greatest wintry potential perhaps. Above average heights tend to be away from us in the west and northwest in the Novembers, with low pressure tending to be more towards the south and east of us, which could leave us pulling in some north or northeasterly winds at times. So it's just a little bit more wintry potential perhaps for November, although a cold wintry month is not signalled or anticipated there, and is a little bit more unsettled as well with the low pressure closer to us. But again, no particular high latitude blocking. That high pressure in the Atlantic is sort of a sort of mid-Atlantic situation, so it's not going up to the pole and pulling down true Arctic sort of weather. Nevertheless, November could be rather cooler and rather more unsettled month perhaps. And in terms of the overall reanalysis for Terry's forecast, this is how it comes out. So it tends to have high pressure sitting just to the west of us, very close to us really, some low pressure to the south. It's still quite an anticyclonic signal, but the high pressure tends to be a little bit further to the northwest, which just allow something a little bit cooler to come through perhaps later in the season. Right, so let's talk you through all of the data, and now it's time to give you the GaussWeatherViz.com Autumn 2019 forecast. So obviously we're going to have to go, and this also is combined with the seasonal models as well, the long-range models, what they were showing. Obviously with this we're going to have to go for a relatively anticyclonic autumn. We saw that within the seasonal models as well last week, that they were kind of split between unsettled low pressure dominated and settled high pressure dominated. I suspect those models that were going more towards the lower pressure side of things have maybe been influenced by the unsettled weather that we had through the early and middle part of August, when a lot of that output would have been generated. So I suspect they've overdone that unsettled signal a little bit, and actually it will be a rather more anticyclonic autumn. So I suspect this autumn is going to be one that is quite benign and has prolonged stretches of quite of quiet, dry, fine anticyclonic weather, interspersed though by periods of activity. So interspersed by bouts of wetter and windy weather. But I think overall rainfall will be below average for this autumn, and temperature will be above average. It could be a significantly warmer than average season, although I would suspect with an anticyclonic signal, particularly if it persists into the second part of the autumn, as Terry has highlighted, that would tend to associate with cooling conditions. High pressure in early autumn, as I said, transitional season, high pressure in early autumn will tend to give you warmer weather in September, but by November, high pressure will tend to give you something a bit colder. So a rather anticyclonic autumn, a rather drier than average autumn, a rather milder than average autumn, a very, very quiet and benign season until probably things liven up a little bit in November. I think Terry is probably right with that, seeing that our analogues have November again as a very strongly anticyclonic month. But it would be pretty unusual to stretch out high pressure like that throughout the whole of the autumn. So I suspect by the time you get through to November, things will start to liven up, may go into a stormier spell as we get into November. But even then, I would anticipate high pressure probably won't be all that far away from us. And at times it will, even in November, probably give us spells of drier conditions. If that does happen, then you can expect frost, maybe some fog too. There's not a lot to go on from a cold perspective here, so those of you that might have been hoping for an early winter conditions, there's very little sign of it. Again, I would suspect November probably holds the greatest chance of doing something cold, maybe pulling in some northerly or easterly winds. That's the one month that's a little bit of a joker in the pack here. I think November, it could do something a little bit different. I anticipate though if it does, it's likely to be more of a stormier, wetter variety rather than wintry. But I would say that November, probably out of the three, does hold the greatest wintry potential, but I wouldn't expect it to be a particularly wintry month by any means. So just a really sort of benign type autumn is what we're anticipating here. Drier than average, warmer than average, and maybe livening up a little bit in November, but even then not really seeing a great deal of sign of wintry potential there. I would suspect the temperature anomaly will be around a degree or so above the 81 to 2010 average, and I think many places are likely to have a drier than average autumn as well, particularly so through September and October, and it possibly goes a bit more unsettled in November. Right, so that's it. That's the best we can do for you. Again, big thank you to Terry Scholey for his input with this autumn 2019 forecast. Terry's input has been invaluable, so thank you so much, Terry, for your input for this forecast. Also, big thanks to James Aquila. Analog Guru has been working so hard through this season. James had a lot going on through this season. So just big thank you to James for everything that he's done for us with this forecast and also with this season of Analog's updates. Big thank you to our good friend Richard Short as well, who's been helping us throughout this season of updates. And yeah, that's it. So, of course, Richard providing our intro and outro images as well. So, yeah, that's it. Big thank you to James, to Terry, and to Richard. We shall see how the forecast goes. I've not got a huge amount of confidence in this, I have to say, because as we've gone along through the updates, although it is a very strong signal that we've ended up with those analogues, very strikingly so. But as we went along through these updates, I couldn't really get that much of a feel for this season. Sometimes when we're doing this, I get a very strong feel as we're doing the updates for where it's going, and that can happen as early as sort of a month into the updates. But with this particular season, there hasn't really been that sort of consistency. I didn't think there had been that sort of consistency within the updates to give me a feel of where this was going. So there could actually within this be a little bit of a surprise at the end of it, perhaps. But we will review the forecast when we get to the end of the season. We always do that at Gasweb. So however this forecast has turned out, we will do an evaluation of the forecast at the end of the season. But that's it. That's the Gasworthy's Autumn 2019 autumn forecast. We're going for a warmer and drier than average autumn. Lots of anticyclonic signals, lots of high pressure domination, interspersed by some more unsettled conditions at times. November looks like it's the month that could deviate a little bit, possibly do something a bit more unsettled, a bit colder. But overall, we are not expecting a particularly cold season at all. We think this can be a very, very quiet and benign type season. So we shall see how it goes. We'll be back later on with the Gasworthy's week ahead forecast. So weather for the weekend will be coming up later on, and also your week to 10-day video update will be along this afternoon as well. This video is going to be placed on the autumn forecast page, and there'll be a written summary that goes with it, just talking about everything that we discussed in the video, so you'll be able to have a look at that. Hopefully, I'll get up a little bit earlier than normal, around 5 o'clock. And then tomorrow, well, the autumn stuff is out of the way. That's it. So we're finished with autumn updates and forecasts, and from tomorrow we move into winter mode, so no time to wait. We never stop at Gasworthy's, and we'll be moving into winter updates for tomorrow. The first winter 2019-2020 update will be with you at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Suggest you set your alarm clock, because it will be quite an interesting watch. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.